Ready in the booth? Yes? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting, the last one of December 2016. Today is the 27th of December. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Brenda, when you are ready.
Doyle.
Here.
Estes. Solomon. Drew. Nordstrom. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brenda. Now is the time to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes? If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt. Motion. I have a motion by Estes, second by Solomon to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment, which is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement thereon by unanimous vote of the alderman present. I do not have any general public comment forms, so we will move on to consent items 1 through 22. Again, seeing no speaker request forms for those items, I will open and close public comment and then request any items to be removed if Alderwoman Drew.
Item number 22.
Okay, any others? If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt the balance.
Make a motion to adopt.
Okay, there's a motion by Solomon and a second by Estes to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of items 18 and 22. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Consent calendar is adopted with the exceptions of items 18 and 22. We'll now move on to item number 18, which is approved request from Gray Television Inc. for variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance 12.08.060 along Skyline Drive. Go to Alderwoman Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In looking at this request for a variance, I know I said I was going to be tough on sidewalks, but this sidewalk just simply doesn't make sense. There's no reason to install a sidewalk, I think, on Skyline Drive. So I'm going to move to approve this. All right, I will move.
Okay, normally I would have you do that prior to talking, but since it's Christmas, I'm feeling very charitable. So I will take that motion if I could get a second. So I have a motion by Drew and a second by Estes to approve this request. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Item number 18 moves to council with a recommendation of approval. We are now on to item number 22, which is to authorize Parks and Rec Department to harvest 100 deer for the 2016-17 season. Alderwoman Drew?
Yes, and I don't see any representatives. Oh, Alex is here? Okay, Alex, could I have a few questions? First of all, move to approve. Second. Okay.
Catch that?
And I'd like to retain the floor, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I would like to ask how you're going to harvest the deer. Is it with bow or with guns, or what do you do?
Great question. There'll be 100 deer harvested this year. That's the quota that Game Fish and Parks has set based on the surveys that Parks admin staff has done and provided to them. How we harvest those is by specified bait stations, and those are at specific locations that are determined to be safe, that we've used in the past. The method for harvest is by gun, and those are done by certified shooters that have been established by the city.
Okay, I know this is a kind of a sensitive area, but what's done with the meat from those deer that are harvested?
The meat is donated to Sportsmen Against Hunger. All the meat is donated to them. They've also donated $2,000 towards the processing fees.
Oh, excellent. Okay, I'm really glad to hear that, and so that's answered all my questions. Thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you. I do have a motion to approve. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item 22 carries. We are now on to non-consent items 23 through 25. I do have 2 speaker request forms. Would you like to go in any particular order? Does it matter? Okay, Mr. Treloar, since you're closer. Okay. And this is on items 23 through 25 as well. When you're ready, sir.
Kyle Trelor with KTM Design Solutions, representing the neighborhood for the affected request for variances on Duckhorn and Vinecliff Avenue. We're back here at the request of the City Council at the previous meeting, and we're coming back through the Public Works, and we'll be on the agenda for the next City Council meeting. We have had a chance to follow up with the Public Works Department and talk with the homeowners once again, and I thought we would clarify some of what the homeowners are requesting and where their position stands. I put together another brief slideshow here to kind of recap what we've already gone over and hopefully clarify some of the positions. This is the general area that we're talking about. It is a drainage between Duckhorn and Vinecliff Drive. It serves only the rear yards of the homes along these two streets. There's no off-site drainage that runs from the street or from the hillsides or anywhere around this area. We do have many regional drainage improvements highlighted here. Those are all part of the master drainage for this subdivision. Basically, all of the water gets detained into these areas. The stormwater quality is taken care of. This drainage easement, is a part of this system. However, it's really intended to only serve these homes where they are. Here's just kind of a closer view. You can see that this is an area under development. Vinecliff Drive now has several more homes on it, although there are still some lots that haven't been built on. This is a view too where you can see on the north side of this property there's an RCP pipe that collects drainage from the area highlighted in yellow. Essentially the water from these backyards flows down this swale and is collected at this pipe and then routed through underground storm into the regional detention facility. What we did is we took the Public Works denial letter for the original application that was submitted by the homeowners, and I just wanted to kind of walk through some points and kind of some counterpoints on what exactly the neighborhood is thinking and go from there. Basically, there was four paragraphs there that, there we go, that I kind of boiled down to some main points, and I just kind of want to walk through those one by one. One is, a minimum 20-foot wide major drainage easement is a city standard, and that's required to provide maintenance. If you take that and you move forward with that, I did go into the design criteria manual and pulled out specific sections. And the way that the design criteria manual is written, there's sections for each item. You have section 3, which covers water, wastewater utilities specifically. You have section 4, which covers stormwater specifically. Inside of that, you'll see that the drainage easement, and you can kind of see it here down on 4. I don't have my screen, but basically the way that it's written, the drainage easement is sized for the 100-year event, which is exactly what these guys are asking the easement to be shrunk to, is that 100-year event. The 20-foot minimum applies only to the water and wastewater infrastructure utilities. And further is centered along basically a buried pipe, which we have none of here. This is basically what they're asking for. This is kind of some cross sections that step down the drainage. You see our maximum depth of flow that we've calculated for the 100-year event is under a foot, which leads into basically the fence issue, which we'll get to here in a second. Second, the question of maintenance. Well, with the very first steps in a subdivision plan, what's voted on is a staff report. Inside of that staff report, I'll wrap this up real quick. Basically, the staff report requires that the maintenance is assigned and agreed to. The maintenance was assigned to the homeowner specifically, so the homeowners are entrusted to take care of this property. It's their responsibility. They've agreed to that through the covenants. Secondly, the city attorney, the city engineers, they also agreed to this, and it was approved through them back when this whole process was being done. So basically, the neighbors are asking that they be allowed to, you know, take care of this area, and the best way for them to do that is through what they're asking for, allow them to best use this property so that they can take care of it and maintain it in a better way. Probably, I'll get to here, the most important item is just a clarification on exactly what they're asking for. They'd like to vacate the major drainage easement to the areas as shown on the drainage easement, you know, from 8 down to 4 feet wide on each side of the property line, and be allowed to install or leave their fences where they are as long as they take the bottom 1 foot of the fence off, so to allow unencumbered flow through the drainage easement. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be here.
Thank you, Mr. Trelor. Now go to Lisa Modrick on the same items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works. Lisa Modrick, City Council Ward 1, representing our Duckhorn and Vine Cliff residents as well, and to share the approach that KTM Designs and Kyle has brought forward with the research, the investigation, the identification that in this particular zone, it did become an overkill area. Something we haven't mentioned, it doesn't show up, or it hasn't been addressed, but across the street from Duckhorn is another row of homes that are also back to back, and just like the flow on Minnesota didn't come down, the major drainage that was set aside years ago under development is the same for that. I want to just remind us that we determined that it wasn't water as much of the issue right now as it is to maintain, and where the neighborhood has placed their fencing, it allows them to maintain it with a better opportunity. The compromise of lifting their fence or taking that fence bottom off also allows anything that you might think might become a drainage area to allow as a free flow if that was to happen. We haven't seen it yet in some of the major storms that we've seen. We've seen it to be a trickle, and that was with some pretty healthy water that's come down this summer, and monitoring that through every healthy, not snowstorm, but we'll know it in the melt in March, but during the summer season as well. It affects a small group of homes. It's not a long 100 home development. This is a really small neighborhood development. So when you're talking about the 29 homes, you know, you're talking about both sides. Many of them have not been built yet, or they're getting in the process of build. So when you've got representation from the neighborhood, those that could come today, that is really to represent the entire neighborhood of the homes that have been built at this point. They have done so much diligent work and come with a great amount of respect for this council and for the decision that is made. And they are here to make the adjustments, the compromise, or stand by your decision. I would hope you would think about the citizens. Again, this is not stating that we have a water issue, but what we've got is a major overkill in our drainage and in the design of that drainage years and years ago before the first house was even built. So with that, respect KTM and what they're proposing for you as well, and we look forward to hearing your decision.
Thank you. Seeing no further speaker forms, we will go ahead and close public comment on items 23 through 25. Since these are really all this, I can't remember the reason why, Joel, that these are all on 3 separate issues. May we take them together? Okay. If the committee has no challenges with that, we can take items 23 through 5 together. And these items all pertain to an appeal of staff's decision to deny a request by Carissa Steiger for a vacation of easement for all of the properties described therein. And I will open up the floor. Alderman Nordstrom. Or
I just wanted to mess with you for a moment. What we're talking about here is our queues are all lined up with different names on it. So in this case, I was lining up with Alderwoman Doyle. So it shows up on her monitor as I'm speaking as Alderwoman Doyle, which is not the case.
Correct, for the record, he is not speaking for me.
Madam Chair, if I may make a motion to uphold staff's denial for the, uphold the staff's decision to deny the request for these three items.
Yes, you may. Do I have a second? Second. I have the motion by Nordstrom, second by Estes Brenda to uphold staff's decision. Would you like to retain the floor, Mr. Nordstrom?
Just for a moment, if I may.
Sure.
The reasons for my decision to uphold the denial is that I've asked the staff that actually do the work out there in this type of environment to take a look at your condition, and they sent me some other examples of what they have to encounter removing the silt from the drainage areas. Carissa Steiger gave me a very good, informative email this morning, and I appreciate her comments. Primarily what she was commenting about is previous 10 work orders that were done on citywide, is the way she was explaining it. And I do appreciate those comments, and I did take them into consideration. However, what the staff is telling me, and the people that actually do the job out there, or in some cases where it's contracted out, they need all of that area to do their work. And primarily what they were explaining to me, it's a time and cost factor. And then without going into great detail, but basically it takes a lot of time to work a small area, and you have to use smaller equipment to do it. So basically going in with a shovel, pulling it out, and then backing up and going in, backing out again. So that's one of the reasons. And then the other reason is that I'm looking at the city attorney's letter that was given to us and shared with us. And primarily what she was saying in that new email, and Joel, if wants to expand on this, he certainly can, but it is in essence what it amounts to for me within this letter is that the city didn't, they're asking the city to fix a problem that they did not create. And that's the short of it, and there's more information within this letter, so if Joel wants to expand on it some more, I'll allow that, but or ask Joel to add in to this, but that's the couple of the reasons why I'm voting for upholding the denial. Thank you, Madam.
Alderman Solomon.
I'm going to give this a shot. Can I make a substitute motion to continue this to the city council meeting for further discussion with the whole group?
You may certainly.
All right, I make that motion. If I can get a second. No. May I retain the floor?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Can I ask a question of Dale Tech, please?
Certainly.
Dale, do you think this this request that Kyle mentioned about vacating the easement to allow fences if they take off the bottom foot of the fence, would that ease your concerns at all in terms of water flow?
As far as water flow is concerned, yes, it would likely accommodate that. However, it's the long-term maintenance that we're concerned with. It's the preservation of that 20 feet to allow that to be free and clear so water can move through there and people won't be placing items in there that will impede the flow of the water in the future.
How often is maintenance done on these types of easements?
It's as necessary.
Okay. I mean, is it a frequent occurrence? Are your teams doing this on a
It all depends.
daily basis, or
No, it's not
just
a
big
daily,
event?
and it may not even be an annual basis. It may be every 3 to 5 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dale. I am on the fence on this because yes. I am on the fence on this because I understand the city's position, and I think we have to look out for the best interests of the city. I do think there are times we have to make sure that we are being reasonable in what we're requesting. And why I'm on the fence isn't that I think the city is necessarily wrong, but I also think this neighborhood has a reasonable request and has offered some solutions here that may work. But I think there's some concerns about this long-term maintenance issue, and is that something the homeowners group does? And last time we met, there was not a homeowners association with covenants in order to do maintenance, from what I understand. So I do wonder about that and putting the onus on the homeowners to take care of this easement. So I am on the fence. That's why I wanted a substitute motion. Again, no pun intended. But I think that we have to take this all into consideration together in terms of what the city requires, what is reasonable, is there a common sense solution? The neighborhood has done a lot of work. I'm very impressed, by the way, with the amount of work they've done. But I think it's something. I just wonder if it's a little heavy-handed for this situation. And with that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Alderwoman Drew, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I didn't support Alderman Solomon's motion was that it is our obligation to vet these projects before they go in, or the issues before they go in front of the council. So I think that we need to talk about this a little bit here. So I have a question for the city attorney. It was mentioned earlier that somehow I didn't really understand this comment by Kyle that you had sent a letter that this was okay somehow. Is that correct? Is that what I understood? No? Kyle, maybe you want to clear that up for me, and then we'll go to Joel.
What I was referring to specifically, and this will kind of go towards your comments too, Jason, is that during the design of this project, one of the things that was actually required of the developers was to assign who was in charge of maintenance, who was in charge of taking care of this. And so how that was established was through the restrictive covenants placed on these properties. Inside of those covenants included a statement that specifically required each homeowner to maintain the easement that was within their property. And that included your routine mowing, maintenance, and whatnot. It also included removing any kind of sediment or silt that builds up with time too. Where the city was involved and the engineers that we were working with is that they reviewed and approved that. So the request and the covenants language, all of that was approved through the city, through the city's attorney. And what I had in there was just a snippet of an email conversation going back and forth where they had approved everything and said, this is how we'd like to do this.
Could you just stay there for a moment? So I'm trying to get my head around where this started, because it's pretty clear that a minimum is 20 feet. So was it, these covenants that just decided that, we're not going to do that, and we're going to just have the homeowners take care of it, and this is really not something that we're going to involve the city in? What happened there? Give me a little bit of a perspective on how this went from 20 feet, where these guys went ahead and assumed that they didn't have to comply with that and built their fences in closer. What happened?
The timeline of events there, I wouldn't be able to speak to that so much as the actual property owners themselves. I can tell you, though, that before this project was built, before it was approved, before the plans were approved, the maintenance of that 20-foot easement was already secured so that anybody that bought those lots would have to do that. That was a restrictive covenant that came with the transfer of property. So that was established well before any homes or lots were transferred.
So they all knew that it was 20 foot that they'd have to maintain. That was part of the easement, or the part of the drainage.
Well, that's where you would have to talk to them and see that there's. My understanding is there was confusion on, the exact, the exact widths and what they were told and who told, basically what.
Told by whom?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, we have a homeowner here that would like to answer that question. Would you approach the podium, and I'd like to hear.
As you do, please state your name and address for the record, if you would.
Hi, I'm Danielle Schaefer. I'm at 4370 Duckhorn. Couple things, just a background. I think I was asking Lisa, Carissa had submitted some different survey maps. So I think they've been submitted with our stuff. There was some confusion. A couple survey maps had the 20-foot easement and some did not. And so there was a lot of confusion by the homeowners. You know, we do, I will be 100% honest and say take ownership that we may have missed the fine print, and we will not deny that. I think you ask any of us. The main thing, though, is some survey maps did not have that, and it was not specified to us in any shape or form in closing, realtors, developers, landscapers, and by no means are we placing blame. That's not my purpose, but there was no one told us no. None of us, you ask the whole street, knew until we got a letter from the city saying move your fence. So again, we take blame for not seeing the fine print, but there were a lot of confusion between survey maps, closing documents, developers, landscapers. You know, we were never told no, so we apologize, but at the same sense, we didn't know we couldn't. So that's kind of the homeowner side of it.
So you saw some covenants that said you were taking care of a 20-foot easement or a, 10-foot on your side?
The covenants part, no. The covenants, that's where between our two developers, Neslin and Zanstra, the covenants was never laid out. You know, I'll tell you from my personal opinion, you know, I put my fence up and I take care of it. You know, by all means do I take care of my own part of it. That's my property. And I feel a lot of us have been the same way. You know, you go out there, the grass goes up to grass. I mean, we maintenance that. So I think we just all assumed that responsibility.
Well, it sounds like there was a lot of confusion when this was established. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Drew. I have no further lights on. Yes, I do. Mr. Nordstrom, please.
Madam Chair, another question for the city attorneys,
Sure.
if I may. Joel, there was some suggestion about a letter or an email that was sent to your office. Are you aware of that letter, number one?
No, I mean, Carla Cushman, through the development process, she gets routings and they comment on stuff. I don't doubt that we probably reviewed and commented on the covenants, but, you know, really the covenants are a contract between the developer and the landowners with each other. I don't find it surprising. Most of the people didn't probably read those in detail. Most people probably don't read their covenants in detail until they're told they're in violation of them, and they're part of the, you know, 80 or 90 pages of stuff that's put in front of you at closing, and most people don't sit through closing and read their covenants. So, you know, we probably looked it over. Was this one of the issues that we were primarily focused on? No, it wasn't probably highlighted. It could have been between the staff or whatever, but a lot of times we're just reviewing the covenants as a whole to determine their acceptability.
Thank you, Joel. Just one more question for you, if I may. Suppose that the council did approve the appeal process, and say, for example, if the homeowners did undertake the process of doing it themselves, isn't there still an issue with transferability, meaning that a property sells and is handed off to the next property owner? Isn't there a transferability issue as well? Meaning that the current homeowners sell their property to a future homeowner, and then they've got to take over on it, and then isn't there some confusion as well in that transfer? I'm kind of calling it transfer.
Might I rephrase for you?
Please.
Having worked with Richie for many years, I think what he's trying to say is that, you know, these people have done their homework. I think if we were to grant something, they're going to abide by it. They're going to take care of it. However, as soon as one property changes hands, that person's not going to have gone through all of this and not, you know, have the same mind frame. And what happens then? Is that closer?
Close
Thank
enough.
you.
Well, I mean, that's certainly, there's no way to really address that. If you vacate the easement and nothing ever happens, nobody's going to say anything, and it's not going to be an issue. If at some point there is a rain event that causes flooding and damage, and there's fences in there and things, and people aren't abiding by the 1 foot rule, and it causes damage, are the subsequent owners going to come back and complain to you? Yeah, probably, and say, well, you should have never vacated this. You know, what were you thinking? Sure. And that might happen, it might not ever happen. And that's the risk you're taking. One thing I would just point out, and I know you've got to balance the rules against, trying to accommodate these homeowners if you can, if it's reasonable. But if the developer had come in and said, at the time this was approved, I'm not going to address the drainage, you probably wouldn't have approved that. But now you approved a drainage plan, the developer came up with a drainage plan, it was approved, and now, after the fact, it's not the developer, it's more sympathetic homeowners, they're coming and saying, well, vacate this drainage easement. Essentially what you're doing is negating the drainage plan that was come up with for this subdivision, something you probably would have never have done if the developer had come in and asked you to do it. So, something to think about.
Have anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Estes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to take my 5 minutes to mumble here a little bit. So, you take 29 houses and you've got 29 people that take care of their property in different manners and they have property rights and such. But as I see this, so the developer plats these lots, puts the streets in, and then who buys, some of these people might have bought the lot and went to the title company and had a closing on their lot. And so then they're probably more apt to read covenants because the covenants are created by the developer. So you buy a lot and then you go, well, I got to hire a builder. Well, the builder will say, do you have your covenants? Because it talks about color and it talks about square footage and it talks about all the nice stuff and it talks about probably the drainage deal. Many of these people probably bought the lot and house complete, and they probably at closing they got the covenants, but it's less important. They want a survey. They just want to make sure that house is on the lot, and they want their title insurance, make sure that what they're buying is protected. Now, the covenants may state that these individuals are supposed to maintain the drainage, but covenants don't get. But if somebody the 2 or 3 or 10% or a couple of them say, I'm not taking care of it, heck with it, I'm going to obstruct this, doesn't give anybody, and I'm not a lawyer, so hopefully Joe will straighten me out, but nobody has a right. If you've got a homeowner that decides not to follow the covenants, the only repercussion of the other homeowners is to civilly sue them. It does not give anybody any right to go into that area and fix it. Nobody can take charge. That's why you have the easement. Yeah, they might take great care of it, but if in case, what this easement allows is that if there's a wreck and somebody allows the city to come in and gives us a working space to solve the problem down the road. If we forget it, you're just giving up that right. And I don't know, I guess if I can, am I close, attorney?
Yeah, I think you're close. I mean, and that's why generally a lot of people, when there's a covenant being violated, people call us and ask us to enforce their private covenants because they don't want to sue their neighbors or don't want to hire a lawyer, and you have a group of people. So that would be the enforcement mechanism on the covenants. The easement is what secures it. If there's no easement there, then there's nothing to maintain, and everybody's they have control of it and basically do whatever they want to do with it because there's no easement there to protect that area. As far as the maintenance, I think, when we consider what a homeowner is reasonable to expect of them is things like don't put in obstructions and mow it. We'll put grass in there and you mow it, but if it needs to be regraded or anything like that, I don't think it's reasonable to expect 20 or 30 homeowners to pool their money and regrade that drainage. So that's probably something that if that ever needed to be done, that's something that we would be expected to do. So,
And I'm not trying to put words in people's mouth, but the 20 foot is a distance that is we find reasonable if you're going to hire somebody to go in and fix a problem after everything's built. It's not representative of how wide we think the water's going to flow. It's just, if you got a wreck, this is the reasonable space to go in and fix the wreck, because we've got, I mean, I can go into, we've got wrecks that need to get fixed, and people won't give us access, and if there's not an easement, we can't go on there and fix it, so, you know, where do you start? I'm not trying to, this is like the Crocodile Dundee of drainage easements, so, you know, this is a knife, no, this is a knife, you know, we've got major drainage easements, take all kinds of profiles, you know, and are we going to sit up here on the dais and start making decisions? You know, if you want to change something, bring something forward to change the design criteria. But you better think about it, because, I mean, I've developed lots that have managed drainage easements. I am going to build a house on a lot that has a major. Are you going to fix my, I mean, are you going to, is mine going away? Where do you start and where do you stop? And that's why I seconded the motion. Thank you.
I see no further speakers. I'll make a couple of comments. And you do raise some valid points, Alderman Estes. The 1 foot flow that we were talking about on the 100-year event, that's also with no obstructions. And as we get further built out at their more impervious surface, I mean, that's, you're going to have deeper issues. I would like to know by Monday by Tuesday, if we could, what the maximum rain event last summer was, what the highest magnitude was. If you know now, if not, if we could have Mary look it up for us. I'm just curious. I don't think it was quite as large as you know, maybe what some are thinking. I also want to share just a quick story. This has been a challenge for me. This is something that actually impacted one of my closest friends. Only in her case, the entire 20-foot easement was on her property. So when they came in and said she had to move her fence, they took 20 feet. She had nothing left. She comes out of her walkout, smacks into the fence were she to re-erect the fence. But the point is that it took 2 homes, her and an adjacent property owner, by obstructing that easement to flood their neighbors. Only 2 people on a big hill in a line. It does happen. And it, you know, this thing, the design criteria comes with a lot of history, a lot of engineering, a lot of data, a lot of analysis. It's not something that's just piecemeal together, and it is so unfortunate. I so badly wanted to do something for her. I mean, the whole 20 feet on her property, she wasn't sharing it with anybody, and there was nothing that I could do that would be fair and not put the city at risk. So I just wanted you to understand where I'm coming from. This would just set a really bad precedent for the city, and then were something to happen, you know, it could be argued that we could be liable. So Dale, if you could have that found out for us by Tuesday, that'd be great. I see no further comments. The motion on the floor is to uphold staff's denial of this appeal. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries on items 23 through 25. We are now at the end of our non-consent calendar. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Solomon, second by Drew to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.